And
Yeah.
that hits on a couple of things I talk about a lot with listening. First of all, that you always speak into a listening.
Mm.
And whether you're a professional speaker like you are and like I am, or whether you're talking one to one at your family or at work or wherever it may be, you always speak into a listening. And that's an important thing to consider because it allows you to start asking the question, what's the listening I'm speaking into, which is listening to the listening. It's being sensitive to
Mm.
the receiver. And that is crucial because the biggest mistake I see all the time people making is assuming that everybody listens like I do, and they do not. Because we listen through this set of filters that I talked about in my third TED talk, the one on conscious listening, the the culture you're born into, the language you speak. So we just talked about, the Italian culture, and that is a different form of listening from, for example, Far East countries, where if somebody elderly speaks, it would be crushingly rude to talk over them and interrupt them because of the respect that there is for older, wiser people,
Mm.
and the way that whole thing works there. So it's very important to be sensitive to those things, the culture, the language, your values, attitudes, beliefs, the things that you accrete along the way from your parents originally, and then perhaps from friends, role models, teachers, whoever it might be. You choose some, you throw away others. I've chosen different ones and I've thrown away different ones, probably. There may be many similarities, but they will not be identical. And then in any given situation, you may have intentions, expectations. You may have emotions going on, assumptions about how the world works and what people think about me, and so forth. So there's all these things which create your listening, and everybody you speak to has got that going on too. So there's a couple of really important things that come with this, I think, transformational realization. The first is if I become conscious of my filters, I can start playing with them, using them as control surfaces,
Mm.
changing my listening position, which is one of the exercises I really love. And if I'm conscious of other people's filters, then I can speak much more accurately into their listening, whether it's one person or, 5,000 people, there's a listening there. And simply by asking yourself the question, what's the listening I'm speaking into? You can sense it. You can sense it. I mean, you know that on a stage. I know that on a stage. I can
Mm.
sense the listening I'm speaking. Is it just after lunch? They're a bit tired. The blood's all gone to their gut. Is it the end of the day? Am I the only thing in between them and the bar or going home? Is it first thing in the morning? Do they need waking up? You have to be sensitive to these things. Is it an older audience? Younger? What are the cultural references here? What are
Mm.
their problems? What are they really here for? What are they hoping for? How can I give a gift that's got some meaning to them? And all of these questions can apply in one-to-one conversation just as much. Easier one-to-one because we're seeing the other person right in
Yeah.
front of us a lot of the time, and there are visual cues which we all know how to pick up. Whether it's little facial expressions or body language or pheromones or whatever it
Mm.
might be, we're picking stuff up all the time, which gives us cues back. So speaking into the listening is a really, really fundamental part of getting people to listen to you. And I think many, many of the people who have the problem of not being listened to, it's largely because they don't ask that question. What's the listening I'm speaking into? Do they have the time? Are they interested in this? What will they be interested in? What's driving them? How can I make this conversation valuable to them?
That those are such powerful questions to be able to ask yourself, and I think you're right. I feel like sometimes I underestimate that I got to learn this stuff intuitively as a stage performer, as a magician from very young. I was doing magic professionally at 16, and so I've had this
Mm,
long kind of my age betrays the amount of years I've been on stages, right? And so sometimes when I'm trying to teach this stuff, it just feels so intuitive because
mm,
when you're on a stage, you can, like you said, you can just feel that there's a different way the audience is listening than they were even 30 minutes ago or will be an hour from now. Even if you're giving the same talk 3 days in a row to three different audiences,
mm.
it's just such a different feeling. Could have been something in the news that morning. Could have just been whoever just spoke right before you. Maybe they, were excellent, or maybe they were terrible, and that both of those things can affect how they're listening to
Oh,
you.
big time. Or they really piss off the audience, in
Oh
which case
yeah.
you come on to a bunch of really angry people. I mean, that all of those things you and I have probably had to deal with over the years.
Yeah.
And, people often say to me, I'm going on after you. I'm feeling so nervous. And I said, don't worry about it. Just because I've got TED Talks and I'm all right at this, it does not affect what you're going to do yourself. You need to be yourself. I talk about the hail of speaking in power: honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. And the authenticity is really important, being yourself. So even if somebody's come on and done, a brilliant, like if I came on after you, you'd do a brilliant magic show. They'd be laughing, they'd be engaged, all that stuff. They'd be whooping and hollering. I'm sure there'd be interaction with the audience. And I would stride on stage, a relatively reserved English person with a very different vibe altogether. Uh, well, I need to acknowledge where they're coming from, and
Mm.
I need to make an adjustment with them so that they know that they're now into a different scene here. And as long as I'm conscious and I'm working on it and I don't ignore it, it will work fine. I know it does because it has many, many times.
And